We're used to deciding who we want to represent us. Just pick your party, Democrat or Republican. But this year, take a look at the first ever candidates in Florida to come from a minor party and make it to the ballot to fight over the chair to be a state representative. The supervisor of elections in Seminole County says the new blood is a good thing.
It's historic, it's great, it's going to be a good test on voter turnout, and it's just great for democracy to be able to have folks that are in a smaller party. You know, we may have a very small political party here, but you know what? We want to be able to choose who our candidate's going to be.
It's the race between Franklin Perez and Ellen Paul that's making headlines and history. It's also a sign voters may be looking for a change, a chance to vote for someone other than a right or left-wing party. A new law is also shaping this election. It allows small parties to elect a representative. If there's more than one, they head to a primary. There's a long list of registered parties on the state's website, all the way from the Real Food Party of the United States to the Surfers Party of America.
If more than one member of the Surfers Party decide that they want to become your next state rep, there's going to be a primary for the Surfers Party. So it's an interesting election this year.
Interesting and possibly record-breaking. Experts say this new party could bring more voters out in Central Florida than anywhere else in the state. In Orange County, Amanda Evans, News 13.
You see the race on the ballot, but what is it? Who wants the office and why? We've got the inside dirt on soil and water tonight at 6.
2 seats for the Orange Soil and Water Conservation Board will be decided in November, but the candidates are hardly making a splash.
Are you familiar with soil and water?
No, I am not.
Do you know who's running for it?
No.
There's a total of 6 candidates up for 2 seats, all running with no party affiliation and little recognition.
I guess I have no money to advertise.
Some do spend thousands for campaign signs, but there's no monetary payoff.
Here I am, and it's free. No charge to you.
Unlike county or city commissioners, soil and water supervisors don't earn a paycheck.
Yeah, I would be surprised to hear that. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, because I'm not sure what that job is.
The Soil and Water Board is now running on fumes. Although created by a Florida legislature, it gets no money from the state. The board used to collect a percentage from large development projects by monitoring their impacts on the soil and water. That all stopped 6 years ago. The board now has only $2,500 and focus now on teaching kids one important message.
Water is a matter of life or death.
So when they are introduced to something in the school system and they come back home, they're talking to mom and dad about those types of things, there's this kind of percolation process that takes place, and those things start to move towards more importance within the households.
District 2 incumbent Timothy Blevins admits Soil and Water Board is not a political powerhouse, but some candidates treat it as a springboard. Former Orange County Commissioner Mildred Fernandez was on the board before becoming Orange County Commissioner, but not everyone had the same results.
They ran for it thinking that this was going to be a stepping stone into perhaps other political arenas, and then found that there's really not a whole lot of activity with this, and therefore they just quit being active with the board.
Blevins knows that firsthand. Governor Charlie Crist appointed him a seat with Soil and Water 7 months ago. The previous supervisor simply stopped going to monthly meetings.
Now, Blevins says the state could always decide to shut down these soil and water conservation districts, but that's unlikely since they have really no impact on the state's budget. These supervisors say they plan on now trying to generate new sources of revenue, meanwhile trying to become more of a presence here in the community. We're in Orlando. Mark Jenkins, News 13.
Would you say things in Florida are heading in the right direction or on the wrong track? Voters we asked have mixed opinions.
I think they're heading in the right direction.
I think it's headed in the wrong direction.
According to our exclusive News 13 Florida Decides poll, about a fourth of registered voters in Florida think that the state is headed in the right direction. 55% say the wrong direction, and 19% say they aren't sure. That's less optimistic than when we did a poll in May. Then 34% of voters said the state was headed in the right direction.
We then asked people what are the biggest problems facing Florida now.
The housing situation with foreclosures.
I know one of the major issues for young and old voters is unemployment.
The economy and jobs were overwhelmingly number one for most people asked. Back in May, 51% polled said the economy. Now, 65% say it's the biggest problem. Poll experts say if the economy is the number one issue, it could push voters towards a business-minded politician. The numbers show voters seem to be ready for a change and to get back on the right track. To win their votes, pollsters say candidates have to prove they can bring jobs. For Florida Decides, Amanda Evans, News 13.
Speaker of the House. This is a Florida Decides special, a debate between the candidates for Florida Attorney General, Republican Pam Bondi and Democrat Dan Gilbert.
Welcome, I'm Scott Harris, along with my colleague Troy Kinsey, who's the Capitol Bureau reporter for both Bay News 9 and Central Florida News 13. We hope over the next hour to explore the Attorney General's race in the state of Florida. We're going to look at the issues. We're going to talk to the candidates, Pam Bondi and Dan Gelber, and we hope this will help you learn about them and lead to informed votes come November 2nd. Troy?
That's right, Scott. With us now, Republican Pam Bondi. She's a former prosecutor and an assistant state attorney in the Tampa Bay area. Also, Dan Gelber, a Democrat in the state legislature. He's also a federal prosecutor. Each will have a chance to give an opening statement in just a moment.
Now, here's how the hour is going to progress. This is not a formal political debate with lots of formal rules and timed answers. We hope to have more of a conversation. We're going to give the candidates a chance to express themselves and give us a chance to follow up on some of the answers. If necessary, we will interject to try to keep anyone from trying to dominate the debate. I'm sure that won't happen.
Never.
A little later in the special, candidates will have a chance to ask questions of each other. The same question goes to them, and they'll ask each other a question. We'll also have some viewer questions that we're going to have at the end. Also want to mention, because we're trying to have a conversation, a formal debate, just so everybody understands, without objection, we're going to all refer to each other by first names, if that works for everybody.
Well, you have both made it clear there are some key differences in your minds between the two of you. I'd like to ask you to start things off with a critical issue, healthcare reform. On Thursday, a federal appeals court judge in Pensacola issued a ruling basically upholding the current Attorney General's healthcare reform lawsuit. By most accounts, the suit is now on track to make it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the outcome of this election could be critical in terms of that suit going forward. As Attorney General, how would you handle that effort to repeal healthcare reform? We'll begin with the Senator.
Well, I think that the public's been sold a bill of goods on this healthcare suit. There are about 5 or 6 of them across the country. 3 of them, I think, have already been thrown out in their preliminary phases. And this one, most of the suit was thrown out. And all legal experts agree it's going to be about a year or 2 before it's even before the Supreme Court. So it's really not going to have any big impact. If you want to fix that health care bill, and I believe it needs to be fixed, I think the way to do it is in the legislature, not through the courts. Only politicians brought these suits. The truth of the matter is that we have a health care crisis in this state with 4 million people. I've yet to hear my opponent say how she's going to deal with that. And so I think whether this suit continues or not isn't going to matter. I want the resources of the office we're both vying for, to be spent on the pressing security needs of our state, not on some politically motivated lawsuit. I think we got a pill mill problem, a public corruption problem, a healthcare fraud problem. We have consumer protection we need to advance. We have Ponzi schemes that are being prosecuted elsewhere instead of here. So what I want to do is focus the resources of this office on the pressing security needs, not on some bill of goods that really was created for political reasons, and I don't believe at the end of the day is going to do anything other than get thrown out by the Supreme Court in 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, Dan, even if I agreed with you that the 3.8% tax increase it will cause on our business is a good thing, or if I agreed with you that the over $1 billion that will cost our state is a good thing, which will take away from education and public safety, the bottom line is this is unconstitutional. We just learned today that in Connecticut, insurance premiums went up 47% as a result of the new health care mandate. Judge Vinson in the Northern District agreed with the attorneys general throughout the country and issued an opinion where he says the Commerce Clause has never been applied in such a manner before. The power that the individual mandate seeks to harness is simply without prior precedent. This has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with protecting our state's rights.
Now, I wanted, but so you would continue the suit, and
Absolutely.
I wasn't clear whether you.
The suit's good. I'm not spending the resources of my office on that.
You would get out.
By the way,
you would get out of it.
Understand something. The suits continue,
right?
Whether we're there or not.
Because there's other attorneys?
Because there's 6 lawsuits. Every politician in the country who was trying to win a Republican primary sued the federal government, it seems like. Lots of them have been thrown out already. Some of them have not been, but they're all in the preliminary stages. This ruling was not a ruling on the merits, and most mainstream constitutional scholars say the only way it's going to be unconstitutional is if the Supreme Court deviates from 70 years of Commerce Clause precedent. I've actually argued Commerce Clause cases in the appellate courts, and I know it's going to be you're really on a wing and a prayer if you think it's going to go. But the point is, why do we want it to be the centerpiece of the office that should be focused on real security challenges? And that's
let's quick response.
Sure, absolutely. 19 other states have joined in with Florida as the lead. I'm proud that Florida has taken the lead. In fact, one of the attorney generals is from a Democrat from Louisiana.
One of 19.
One of the other 19, absolutely. And Florida has taken the lead on this. This is so important to Floridians and to our future. And I would wholeheartedly continue with this lawsuit. It's already in the appellate process. That cost is being divided among 20 states. And I agree with Dan in that it will make it to the Supreme Court, but we disagree in that the Commerce Clause can regulate an inactivity.
Well, what would be the impact, though, if Florida, as the lead state, were to leave the suit? What would be the impact?
Absolutely nothing. Because the suit will continue here and in the 5 other places. It's the same issue. Let me ask you something, Pam. Do you think the federal government can tell you to spend 1.5% of your income on insurance for health care? Do you think they have a right to do that?
Well, what I believe is that Florida should be proud that we've taken the lead. The Attorney General from Florida is the one who argued this in front of the Northern District of Florida. He's the one who argued this. And this is now continuing to the Supreme Court. Dan, let me ask you, what I don't believe in is a 3.8 tax increase on businesses. What we can't agree on is we need tremendous health care reform.
Let me get a quick response to that,
because this is not the way to do it.
I'd like this question answered. Do you think the federal government can tell employees to spend 1.5% of their income on health care insurance?
I don't think the federal government can regulate anything that's unconstitutional.
Because that's the Medicare program in Florida, by the way. The 1.5% is what is your FICA. And the federal government charges you and me that for their health care. Are you going to challenge Medicare?
And this will drive this would drive hundreds of thousands of people into that program, and that's why our costs will increase.
That this has become a major issue, major political.
I don't know this. Frankly, I think it's only a major issue because it's been created as a major issue. It's really not going to be solved in the courts.
It's bigger than that, though.
Welcome to a special edition of The Agenda. You just heard the 3 candidates for Senate: Kendrick Meek, Marco Rubio, and Charlie Crist. This debate matters because it's going to determine who's the next U.S. Senator from the state of Florida. And as you can see from our exclusive News 13 Florida Decides poll, the numbers we just have in here, it looks like it may be Marco Rubio's to lose. He has 41% of the decided voters. Charlie Crist coming in second with 26%. Kendrick Meek getting 20%. The rest, well, they're undecided, or they won't say, or they may just not vote. If Crist did get that entire 12%, of course, it still wouldn't be enough to beat what Rubio has. The poll does have a margin of error plus or minus 4%, so there's still fluidity there, although it's pretty much stayed the same. The real poll, of course, is the one that counts on Election Day. I'm joined by our usual advocates, John Morgan on the left, Frank Rappenbacher on the right. Gentlemen, you watched the debate. Quick overall impression. Was there a loser or a winner? Anybody make a big gaffe?
I don't think there was a big gaffe, and that's because there's no big gaffe. That means that the winner is Rubio.
Didn't change the dynamics. Frank?
Rubio won, Crist lost, Meek was a spectator.
Charlie Crist talked about the need to compromise, and Marco Rubio said, well, compromise is that's not the word. It's giving away something. And he got into the ideology. Crist attacked him for his ideology of saying, I'm going to stand by this, and if I can't get my tax cuts for the top 2%, then nobody gets tax cuts. How did you read that? Did that help?
Well, I actually was proud of Rubio because I think we have lost control of this country and this state by politicians who do not have values that they stand by. And Charlie portrayed exactly what is the problem. I believe in X, but I'm willing to compromise on it to get something done. We somehow in this country have come up with the conclusion that it's okay to say you believe in X, but really not do it.
John Morgan?
Look, the only values that Marco Rubio has is the values that the top 1% have and that the Chamber of Commerce. To say, I won't give 99% of the people a tax break unless the richest people in America get one, means I represent the top 1%. Interesting, Bill Bradley told me once at lunch, 19% of Americans believe that they're in the top 1%, and another 19% believe that they're just about there.
They'll get there tomorrow.
That they're just about there. And that is, the sad part is that is the optimism of America, but the reality is the 1% have made a lot of money. People like Warren Buffett, Bill Clinton said, look, tax me. I'm happy to pay an inordinate share for the good of the good of this country.
I've heard one of them say that.
I
take issue with what you say.
That's part of Bill Clinton's speech.
Rubio believes in representing all the people and that everybody should participate. What I just heard Meek and Chris support is, let's pick a particular group of people and say they are going to have to pay disproportionately. It's not right. Why should I have to pay more because I work harder?
Let me ask you something, though. If it comes down to it and it's a yes or no vote in the Congress on it's not extending it for everybody, just extending it for 98%, are you saying Marco Rubio would vote no on that?
Right.
I believe he would vote no on it.
And you think that's the right vote?
Yes, because I respect the fact.
In other words, if he can't have it all, then by God, I will wipe out the middle class tax break. If you don't give me everything, if you don't protect that top 1%, if you don't give me that, then I will wipe out everybody.
Why are you critical of him for having a value and being willing to stand by it?
Because the values are those that are represented by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the insurance industry, and the very, very richest among us.
John.
And what they don't realize is that when the middle class starts to shrink, and there is no middle class, then the lower class come and just take it. Think Germany, Cuba. That's the fact.
Before we go there, we're having a better debate than they had, but I want to get to one more issue. And you're not running for office. You don't care about losing votes. It's time now when we bring out the Truth-O-Meter. It's our PolitiFact segment. We go to the St. Petersburg Times reporter Aaron Shirachman, who has all this fun looking into this stuff. Aaron, thanks for joining us as usual.
Happy to be here.
Going to start out, this is fascinating. It's a commercial that's been running. It's been running by the Grayson campaign, that tight Grayson Webster. Who knows where that's going? But, well, there's Led Zeppelin and Jimmy Page. Are you gonna sing that for us?
I most certainly am not going to sing. Maybe you will.
I would, but I left the air guitar home this week, so I actually think most people here have seen it. They've been running it a lot. It's the ad, and the quote is, this comes from the Grayson campaign, when career politician Daniel Webster became Speaker of the House, he wasted $32,000 of our money on a spiral staircase for his office. And of course, the takeoff in the ad is Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, and the refrain is Stairway to Nowhere. So what's the deal on this?
Well, we rated it mostly true, and we started by noting that we're not American Idol judges, so we otherwise we might rate it differently, but we're fact checkers. And in this case, Grayson has most of his material right. When Dan Webster became Speaker of the House in 1996, he oversaw some renovations to the House. It's done every year by every speaker. He spent about $100,000 in total on renovations, and one of the renovations was a spiral staircase that went from his office on the 4th floor down to the House Republican office on the 3rd floor. It was built so that he and other people could move up and down between the offices without having to walk out and deal with the public.
Or the press.
Or the press.
Yes, yeah.
Now it's funny, we actually took a tour of this stairway. It still exists.
Really?
But it's actually been cut off in half because the top landing is now the office of the Speaker of the House's Chief of Staff. And so it really is a stairway to nowhere right now. It's bolted into a closet on the 3rd floor of the Capitol. It goes up to a ceiling, a concrete ceiling, but it doesn't exist any more than that.
When did that happen?
That happened when Speaker Marco Rubio took over in 2006.
Really?
Yeah. And now the one note that's important for the viewers of this commercial to take notice of is the spiral staircase isn't elaborate or ornate at all. It's just a really rickety metal black spiral staircase. It was only built that way because that was the only way you can go straight up. You couldn't build a normal staircase, so that's what they built. But Grayson is right, or mostly true on the Truthometer.
Let me ask you just a quick question on that. You said Webster spent about $100,000 on renovations.
Yep.
How does that compare to previous Democrats and subsequent Republicans?
Sure. It's certainly spending has been all over the map there. I think John Thrasher spent something close to $5 million or more. Wow. Rubio in 2006 spent, I think, $500,000 or more doing renovations. Then there's someone like Alan Bentz in 2004 who only spent about $1,500. The last Democratic speaker was Peter Rudy Wallace in 1994. I think we reported he spent about $2 million. So everyone does this. When you take over, you make renovations. And in fact, Webster made a lot less renovations than some speakers, but he did include this spiral staircase.
Staircase to nowhere. I love
it. That's right.
It is Voter Helpline Day here on News 13. We've got representatives of the local supervisors of elections office here answering the phone. If you call with questions about, are you registered? Where are you going to vote? Can I have an absentee ballot? 1-866-407-HELP.
Thanks, Joe. Do you have election questions? We have election answers. News 13's Scott Harris is standing by with the Florida Decides Voter Helpline this morning, where representatives from supervisor of elections offices in Central Florida are answering questions. Scott, what are people asking about this morning?
A lot of people, they realize they're not registered, or they realize, I haven't changed my address. So they call in the Voter Helpline number 1-866-407-HELP. That's 407-4357. You've got all the people here that are answering the phone, willing to answer your questions, can help you get through that. I'm going to turn now to Mike Ertel, who is the supervisor of elections for Seminole County. You just told me something I didn't know, that you say more people voted absentee or by mail. I guess it's not really, they still call it absentee?
We do still call it absentee, and it's no longer just election day in which you can cast a ballot. You can cast your ballot we're starting to send out absentee ballots now, so votes have already come in for the August 24th election. So there's a lot of ways that you can vote. Election day is really the last day in order to cast your ballot.
I feel old-fashioned. I usually vote on election day. But did you tell me more people vote now by mail, absentee, or in the early voting? There's about 2 weeks of early voting, right?
Correct. We have more folks in 2008 election. I think you'll see this countywide throughout the state, voted either absentee or early, then showed up at the polls on election day. So if you like that classic voting of voting at the polls on election day, the lines are going to be shorter because a lot of your neighbors have already cast their ballot.
That's the good news. I guess I'm just too old-fashioned. What's the biggest confusion you find among voters that you talk to?
I think the biggest confusion is voters don't know enough about the candidates. They get a whole lot of stuff in the mail, and so they need to be able to discern between the candidates on the issues, not just on, candidate A says this about candidate B. So
have you seen some of that going around?
We don't regulate negative campaigning, but we do give candidates the opportunity so that they can be on our website and on a lot of the websites throughout the state to be able to have a little bio about themselves, so voters can go to those websites and learn more about the candidates and inform themselves, so that when they get into the polls, they're not making an uninformed decision. They're making a decision based on their own research.
You're talking right at my alley. Thank you, Mike Ertel, Supervisor of Elections, Seminole County. Speaking of websites, I know of one, Lisa, the new CFNews13.com. Guess what? We've got candidate profiles all over that, too. Go to politics, go to Florida Decides, got information on the voter helpline, and how you can check your registration, plus the candidate information. So spend the rest of your day here and there.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Scott. News 13's Scott Harris reporting this morning.
Some of the most watched races in the country are happening tonight right here in Florida.
Of course, among them, the race for governor and Senate.
But we're also tracking dozens of local races as well.
News 13 Scott Harris is joining us now, getting interactive tonight with all the details. Scott.
A lot of information going to be coming in tonight. We've actually got more than 200 state and local races, and yes, who will be Orange County's next mayor? That's one of the questions we hope to answer. But as you said, we're going to have boards up to give you the numbers. This is that governor's race. It's going to be a close one. We expect that to go, well, we hope not too late tonight. All those school board taxes that various counties have been asked, that'll be on our menus to let you know how that's going. Lots of races all around. We're going to do the governor's race, too, county by county. As the counties declare, we might see trends because we expect certain things to happen, and if they don't, we can go, But otherwise, we've also got, if you want to check the national, go to our website, cfnews13.com. You can even check the national races and keep track of them. So it's all here on News 13 and on cfnews13.com. It should be an interesting night. Early on in the campaign for Orange County Mayor, you had to consider Bill Siegel the favorite. He had raised the most money. It's a nonpartisan race, But he had the backing of the Chamber of Commerce. He had financial support. He had raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in fact, Teresa Jacobs was late getting into the race. The other candidates, Mildred Fernandez, Linda Stewart, and Matt Falconer. Now, Mildred Fernandez dropped out because of the criminal charges that have been filed against her having to do with campaign fundraising. These two won the primary. That was the goal for everybody. And Teresa Jacobs was ahead, and Bill Siegel came in second. It's pretty much played that way out. Let's take a look at those two hot congressional races. With 29% of the votes, precincts reporting, this is in U.S. House District 8. Alan Grayson, the freshman Democrat who everybody knows by now and either loves or hates, he's pulling down 37% of the vote. Daniel Webster, former Speaker of the Florida House, former state senator, 57% of the vote. Again, that's with almost 30% of the vote counted. That's quite a gap there. And in checking around, that seems to be pretty much of a gap in all the counties. Again, here you go. This is House District 24. 4 counties, Sandy Adams, 60%, the Republican challenger. Suzanne Cosmas, the freshman Democrat, 39% of the vote. That district was the district that Cosmas won from Tom Feeney 2 years ago, and it's more or less a Republican district, but plus you've got the Republican wave this year. Those two districts, pretty much again, the pundits were saying that this is probably the way it would go. Again, 44% of the vote there, but that's quite a difference to make up, so it looks like that's going that direction. Not ready to call it yet, but that's the way those two congressional races looks, Jackie and Beth, and I think that by the time Election Day came around, most of the pundits kind of expected the Republicans to win those two districts. I know at the national level they were being looked at. There's actually 4 other congressional races around the state of Florida that the national pundits are looking at, and we haven't had a chance to look at those yet. We'll check them before the night's over, though. Welcome. I've got Alan Grayson with me, the congressman from the 8th District through January 3rd. Is that correct?
Sounds right.
Sounds about right. Not that you lost the campaign, and I want to thank you for coming by.
Sure.
Not the best of nights. You seem to be handling it fairly well, though.
I'm happy with what we've done. I'm happy with what we accomplished. We accomplished health care for all Americans.
You were a polarizing figure. A lot of people loved you, obviously, by the money you raised from, especially all over the country. They liked it when you stood up to the Republicans by using some of their own rhetoric. And a lot of people hated you, if I can use that, maybe politically hated you. I won't use it too strongly, but maybe they did. I don't know, because they didn't like some of the things you said. Did you go overboard in some cases?
I did what needed to be done for the good of people in the district. It's that simple. Time and time again, we did really special things for people in the district. We cut foreclosures in Orange County in half after the Grayson mandatory mediation program was adopted by the courts. That's something that's been so successful, it's been adopted statewide. I got no credit for it, but we did manage to
those
save.
Didn't come out, because those things, what people knew about Alan Grayson is he was a bombastic something or other, bombastic genius, somebody described you as.
Well, people know what the media lets them know, but the fact is that we've done enormous good things for people. We got $200 million for the schools. I think people did learn about that in the end. We doubled the amount of federal grant money coming into the district in my first year in office. I'm really proud of the things that we did that helped people in their everyday lives. Better roads, better schools, better jobs. These are the things that I'm proud of.
You almost, for the cynical politician, you almost sound idealistic.
Well, look, I'm obviously not in it for myself. I'm the only member of Congress who has 5 children in school. It's a struggle just to get everybody's homework done. And to leave them every week and go up to D.C. broke my heart. But I was amazed in the first week alone at all the good things that we could do for people. And that's what motivated me. That's what always motivates me.
Well, there seems to have been some problems in Seminole County as far as voting is concerned. And for a report on that, we go live to News 13's Amanda Evans. Amanda, what happened?
Hey guys, here is the deal. The Seminole County Supervisor of Elections website went down right about 8 o'clock. Right when they were starting to put in some of these poll numbers. You can see here I've got an election summary report. This is all the numbers from all the races. The supervisor of elections tell me these numbers were coming in. They had no problem with any of that, no problem getting the information from the polls. The big problem came when they tried to put them on the website. We just talked with the supervisor of elections. This is what he told us about their plan to handle the problem.
Results were still being tabulated. We just weren't able to put them up on the website. So what we did was we would, like every 5 minutes, send to every member of the media and all the candidates an email updating them with the results. Here's a spreadsheet of the results. Here's a spreadsheet of the results. So while we didn't have that pretty website that we're so used to having, we had the results coming in quickly like we're always used to having.
Now, he tells us that they did not have any problems at the polls. All their machines were working. It just was a pretty smooth night, he said, overall, until that big bump in the road. He said the website just would not work. They would not stay up. It crashed. At this point, they are still troubleshooting the website, trying to get those results online for people that are trying to check for them there. Jackie and Beth?